Hi, everyone. I am so excited to introduce Moses Lee, who is a man of many, many hats. I'm really excited for him to share his story. Moses, I kind of got a little bit of a background from our mutual friend who introduced us. So I know that you have a very colorful history and background that I hope that you'll share with us today. But your career, so Moses Lee, his career spans technology and traditional finance. And he most recently served as the head of futures and options trading at a very, very, very large investment bank, where he went from crypto skeptic to one of the believers. He graduated from the University of Texas at Austin. Shout out, I was at UCLA with a degree in economics and history, and he followed by becoming a research student at Hsinchu University, Department of Information Engineering. So I'm going to pass it over now to Moses. I'm also really thrilled. I see so many new and familiar faces. As a Bixie plug, we have heard your calls for crypto and are answering them. We've had a few of these workshops where we talk about crypto, and we've increasingly been bringing on higher and higher profile, higher and higher professional people to share their experience and share their advice on crypto. Because what do we want? We want our community to be knowledgeable, we want them to be networked, and we want them to have the tools to do something about progressing in their financial journey. So we're really excited that Moses is here to share his knowledge with us. And if you have any questions, these are live. So write your questions in the IG live, write questions in the Facebook live, write your questions in all of the live, write your questions inside of our app, which you can download in the links provided in our chats on IG live and Facebook lives. So I'll just get started. Moses, tell me where you're from. How did you get your name? Tell me where the journey of Moses Lee began, because I know it's interesting.
Yeah, so thanks. And everyone, great to meet you online. And thank you for the opportunity for me to share about my personal journey into crypto. As mentioned, I have a very diverse background, including my name. It's not a made-up name for myself. It was actually a given name. My mother was reading Exodus when she was pregnant and decided that Moses was a great name for me. I was born in Korea. I was also raised in Bangladesh for most of my elementary school days. And then my teenage years was in the US and graduated university there. And after that, I moved to Japan. And now I'm living in Singapore. I've worked in technology as well as traditional finance. And by traditional finance, I mean your regular banks, stock brokerages, and so forth. I've been in the investment banking industry for a very long time. And that's kind of like what I have built my career on thus far. So with that, with my background growing up, as well as my education and career, it was a very global as well as diverse experience. And so that kind of allowed me to appreciate how the internet connects the globe, as well as the possibilities of crypto. So like crypto for me was something that I was first introduced to by a couple of friends very early on when they were mining crypto. And they were telling me about this, and they were mining, they're getting digital coins, and it made no sense to me because like, how can you yourself make money? It makes no sense. And so it kind of seemed like a very niche thing. It seemed like kind of a non-traditional thing. It kind of seemed like a game. And so that's kind of how it ended. And then I became even more skeptical after Mt. Gox, which was one of the first crypto exchanges in Japan, got hacked. There was news all over. And at that time, I was living in Japan. And so watching the news, you'd say, oh my goodness, this tech is not ready. And then Silk Road was shortly after that. And Silk Road was this kind of massive underground, illegal marketplace, and that used Bitcoin. And then again, it reinforced my kind of prejudice against Bitcoin as something that is not mainstream and really a technology that is on the fringes. And then all of a sudden in 2017, CME, which is one of the biggest futures and options derivative markets, which is regulated by the US government, they listed the Bitcoin futures, which was a shock to me. I didn't know that Bitcoin matured while I was ignoring it, and that it got big enough to be listed on one of the biggest futures exchanges in the world. And at that point, I thought maybe I should look into it. And so as what other people do, you go and read the Bitcoin white paper, and then you finish reading it. You don't quite understand what you've read. But you can tell people that you've read it, right? So you don't look too stupid. And so even reading the Bitcoin white paper, it didn't really resonate with me. But Bitcoin became a official traditional finance security product. And so that's kind of where it ended, until I realized, after talking to a lot of people and then actually starting my first step in crypto, actually doing it, that I've realized that crypto actually has a use. It has a purpose. And the reason why it's valuable is not because it's something like digital gold or some kind of currency, but I look at it more as a digital value token, which means that cryptocurrency, or what we can call digital assets, they allow us to do things on the internet that creates value. And so that's really what made me really interested in cryptocurrency. And that's how I really got interested in pursuing it further.
Moses, can you maybe break it down a little bit
Sure.
more? It's like, what do you mean by it allows us to do things on the internet that create value? What does it allow us to do that creates value?
Sure. So in the most simplest form and in the most widely used way of value is cutting out the middleman. So that's the most revolutionary part of currency, which is blockchain technology. So what this allows you to do is, without a central trusted party, you and I can transact with each other on the internet without someone in the middle. So, like, for example, if you take a credit card transaction over the internet, it's really not between you and me. It's between me and the credit card company and many different institutions in between and banks. And then the money goes to you. And it may take time, it may not, but it's expensive. And we normally don't think that it's expensive because we see a price, and you see a price on Amazon, you pay with a credit card, and you think that's the price. But the price has embedded in it transaction costs, which is quite significant. And so that's kind of like one of the simplest ways of thinking about value and how cryptocurrency adds value to the internet.
I think a really relatable, because, again, our female audience, a lot of people are super new to a lot of these concepts. A really relatable comparison is, and not to make it, rudimentary for the ladies, but I don't know if you guys ever order Grab delivery or Food Panda. And you'll see a price on Food Panda or Grab Food, and it'll say, 100 pesos for this donut. But if you actually call the restaurant directly, the donut is only 75 pesos. And so we think we're paying a price, but what they did was stack on all of those middlemen or middlewomen fees in between. So I think that's something that makes a lot of sense. So it's basically Are you saying that cryptocurrency to some extent can make a lot of our online transactions cheaper?
It certainly has the potential to do so. The technology is enabling a kind of trustless transaction and frictionless, as well as the other value there is it's global. So it's not within one country. And it's rather censorship resistant, which there is no government that can come and stop you as long as you have access to the internet. So that's kind of like those values that the blockchain technology has. So that's quite exciting. And
so what was the moment or what
that answers your question?
Yeah. What was the event that took you from skeptic to believer?
To be honest, I think it's like most other people in traditional finance, you think you're going to make quick money, right?
Okay.
And for us in traditional finance, we like volatility. Volatility is when prices move very fast up or down. And in the financial industry, prices can go up, you make money. Prices can go down, you still make money. And so volatility is something that is not necessarily scary. It can be, but it's not necessarily, it can also be an opportunity. So that's kind of like the way of kind of many people getting into crypto thinking, well, maybe I can make some money here, which is not a bad way to get into it. But at the end of the day, there are other reasons that are very valid to get interested in crypto.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think, I mean, if what would you say is a valid reason or a good reason for women to get into crypto?
Yeah, so let's talk about equality. Well, I've heard statistics saying that men dominate as account holders for crypto exchanges. Well, that doesn't sound too fair. So how about that? Let's flip that. And I hope what we can do with this talk today is get people to equalize the gender participation in crypto. And I think the other reason is that to a degree, you have deeper social problems where you have fewer women in technology and engineering in general, right? I think that's fair to say. And so you obviously have a lot of men who are in computer sciences and engineering who kind of naturally gravitate towards digital assets because it's something that is not too far-fetched from their education. And so educational background. And so that could be one of the reasons why there's disparity there. But overall, I don't think it's a women should get involved. I think everyone should get involved because this is going to be transformational, in my opinion. The internet, like if you ask most people these days, what's one thing you can't live without? And it's either going to be water, electricity, or the internet. So I've asked a couple of young people, can you live without the internet?
I'm slightly scared by that response. I'm actually really curious to anybody who's watching. Can you just write what you can't live without? And if the internet trumps water, wow, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of these things. The internet has become that central to people's lives. And that's happened pretty much over 20 years. I think that before 1995, very few people knew about the internet. And the adoption rate was somewhat slow, and then it exploded. I think that crypto is the second wave of this transformational technology. There's many things that people say about crypto and what it means for the internet. But if you look at the adoption rate, there's data that indicates that crypto adoption is plotting similarly to how the internet was adopted. So that's quite amazing.
Wow. Okay. That's so if, you know, and one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Bixie is taking theory and making it a reality for people who are interested. And I also just want to, you know, throw in a disclaimer that everything that we talk about in these workshops is absolutely not financial advice. Absolutely not financial advice. We do not recommend doing anything. This is really just knowledge sharing. But in that vein, you know, I want to start somewhere, right? So I started, and I did one of these talks before. I fell into my crypto journey, right? Like I fell into blockchain. It was like the first job I got after I'd left my previous industry. And so I kind of learned all about it by YouTube and Twitter, and there's just so much information to process. How do you navigate? How did you navigate? You know, especially because you were recently, somebody who migrated into crypto world. Like, where do you start? Where does one start on their journey?
Sure. I think there's two things that we want to do on this call, and one is we want to make sure that you know a concrete step to get started yourself if you wanted to. And I think the large motivation factor for you in starting this journey is to learn, right? Not to
absolutely
quick buck. Because if everyone is talking about cryptocurrency, about Bitcoin, about Ethereum, then the best way for you to learn is doing it, right? And so that's one thing that we want to do. And then the other thing that I think we want to talk about is when we talk about things that are touching financials, right? Then a lot of people will just say, this is not financial advice, do your own research, right? And so I think that to a lot of people, do your own research doesn't really resonate, right? Because people want to know, it's like, why can't you tell me? So
also in the era of misinformation, do your own research can be a pretty dangerous place,
right? And thanks to the internet, you have a copious amount of information, and you don't know how to even start researching. Where do I start? And so we'll do some practical tips on where to start, some basic places on how you go about doing things. So we'll talk about that as well. So I think maybe right now would be a great time for us to do the special thing.
Okay, so the special thing.
Yeah.
Drum roll is, Bill, will you join us?
Yeah.
So one of the things we always do is get people to start whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's, you know, oh, I'm curious about insurance, I'm curious about traditional investments, nothing to it but to do it, right, ladies? So Bill, my sister, is going to be our experiment. She has never, ever, ever opened a crypto wallet. She has never, ever, ever done anything related to crypto. So today is day one. And why is she doing this? She's doing this because this is as you know, as Moses was saying, like the first step is to get your feet a little wet. The first step is just, okay, where do I even go? How do I even start? Well, you have to start by, to get on the internet, you have to start by like logging into the internet. To get into cryptoverse, you have to start by opening up a wallet. In the Philippines, these are permissible, they're regulated, and if you're a Filipino citizen, all you need is an ID and a smartphone. Well, boy, you can kind of walk them through. And there you go, you've begun your crypto journey. And then afterwards, Moses can kind of walk us through maybe some sources to start that filtering of information, because there's just so much out there. So, one boy.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm going to try.
Is today day one of your crypto journey?
Yes, yeah.
How do you feel? And this is really important. How do you actually feel about it?
I don't know. I'm excited, I guess. I'm always in the internet anyway, so I'm always online. So, why not try it? So yeah. So I tried to open. It's not, first and foremost, it wasn't very difficult. See, if that assures everyone, if it's if there's an assurance that I can give right now, hindi siya mahirap magbukas. Ay, hindi mahirap magbukas ng wallet. So, I decided to use coins.ph. I think it's a popular crypto wallet in the Philippines. Sorry for my terms. I'm not very familiar with crypto terms as well. If there's a term na I could say wrong, please correct me na lang. But yeah, I decided to wait. I'm gonna show my screen, but of course you will see my wallpaper. That's BTS. So the coins at the so coins PH. So first you have to you can sign up. Pwede ang yung number nyo kahit anong ano yan, kahit anong network. So if you have Smart or Globe or ano pa ba, Sun, may ganun pa ba na number. So any network could do, you can sign up via your number. Dapat active yung number nyo kasi doon isi-send yung verification code. So ma-receive yung code, or you can also sign in through your email. So dapat active din yung email or hindi pa siya full, because if you sign through email, the verification code will also go to that email. So you can sign through two ways. So by your number or via email. So ang trinay ko kasi I made a mistake. I accidentally used my Bitcoin for my crypto, my personal number for a different region. So hindi ko muna siya magamit for Coins PH. So what I did is I signed via my email. So proceed na tayo. So nakapag-sign up na ako. So I already have an account. So that's my email. Makikita nyo dyan, the name. It's too bright, no? So that's my name, that's my account. And then the next step is verification. So ano yung kailangan natin for verification? So the first step na kailangan for verification is either a TIN, tax identification number. So if you're working or kahit full-time, part-time, or mga freelance, I think meron naman tayong TIN. Kung wala kang TIN, meron din option of GSIS number. So kung wala kang GSIS number, for instance, you're not you're a private employee or self-employed, pwede din ang SSS. So your options would be TIN, tax identification number, or hindi to ENDA or lang siya, GSIS, tapos kung wala pa rin GSIS, pwede rin SSS. So that's the first step for verification. Now, the second step is mag-upload ka na ngayon ng ID mo for your verification kasi you will become you need to verify your crypto wallet para makita mo, para makapag-cash in ka, para makapag trade ba yun? Or you can buy like crypto online. So you need to verify your identity. So how do you verify your identity? So number one, nalagay dun yung full name. Please use your name that you use on all transactions, that one in your birth certificate. So very important yun. Ako personally, I have a very long name. So I had to put everything there. I have like 5 names. So lahat dapat siya nandun because that will be critical in uploading your government ID. So after you put in your name, you will have your address. Yeah. So any address naman will do. Any address in the Philippines may drop down yon. There's like if you live in the metro or if you live in the provinces or in a certain city, and then you enter your zip code. So before siguro na i-research na kung ano yung zip codes nyo. Kasi nandun siya sa Q&A portion. And then after your name, your basic information, you will have to upload your ID. So may mga choices doon. You can there's a long list actually of allowed na government IDs, and most of them are government. Hindi pala all of them are government issued IDs. So dapat issue dyan ng government, like driver's license, you have your SSS, you have your GSIS, passport, pwede rin. So, i-click nyo lang yun, i-click nyo lang siya. So, hindi ko na siya mapapakita kasi I applied for verification, so I can explain the process, no? So, i-click nyo lang, there's a long list actually of ID. So, I chose my passport. Siyempre, hindi ko papakita yung details, no? But I chose my passport, and then you have to may option to take a photo of your passport. So you have to enter your name appearing on the passport. So kaya sabi ko kanina, it's very important that you use your real name. You cannot shortcut na one name lang or two names lang if you have 5 names like I do. So, kasi yun din yung i-copy mo sa verification. So, put in your details, passport number, because I chose passport, no. So, date of issuance, date of expiration. Make sure that your ID is not expired, ha. Kasi may nakita kong note kanina that passport issued before 2016, parang kumbaga parang hindi na siya i-accept as a valid ID kasi before kasi Filipino passports expired after 5 years. So after noon, I think it was in 2019 when they started issuing 10 years passport. So 16 beyond yung passport mo, hindi na siya i-consider as valid ID. So make sure that the valid ID that you have with you is valid. So upload mo yon. And then, bibigyan ka ng, pag naka-upload na siya, you will have the system. The system, the Coins PH will give you 72 hours. Yeah, you will have to wait for 72 hours. Pwedeng less, pwedeng 72, pwedeng 48, pwedeng 24 before you become verified. So, I think I was verified in an hour yata eh. So I got the verification notification within an hour. So to recap, to sign up, you just need your number and email. And for verification, dun sa step 2, SSS or GSIS or TIN, that's the step 2 na verification. And last but not the least, yung mga IDs na you can upload. So kasi sa Philippines, we don't have a national ID pa. Wala pa tayong, kumbaga hindi pa siya, I think we started doing the national ID system na, no, but we don't have yet, kumbaga, a comprehensive. Kaya acceptable pa rin ng SSS, GSIS, and TIN. For some jurisdictions, I think they're requiring the national ID. But for us, we have actually 3 options. This is better kasi, mas marami tayong options. And last but not the least, uploadable photos. So you have passport, driver's license, GSS, UMID, everything. Kumbaga mga government issued ID. So again, as a first timer, it's not very hindi siya kasi before to be honest, kasi ganoon naman talaga kapag mga new technologies we feel intimidated, especially this is money and this is we're gonna put our hard-earned money in this venture, no. So it could sound very intimidating. It's new to me. It's very new to me. It could sound very intimidating, but at the same time, exciting din siya. And at the same time, hindi naman siya ganun ka difficult. It wasn't difficult to sign up and do it. So, as my sister would always say, put in there, kahit small amount lang, wag ma-pressure na, I have to put 100,000 per month. No, wala akong ganun. You have to put lang yung amount that, you think will kumbaga parang hindi mo need immediately in the next week or in the next month. So, just put in there pa konti-konti. So, I think that's the pressure also, no, minsan na iniisip natin dapat malaki agad yung investment, but not really. So, again, I hope you learned something from my demo na hindi naman masyadong demo, but I think this is the practical side. You just have to, you just have to jumpstart, sign up, prepare an ID, prepare your TIN, SSS, GSIS, and then I think you're good to go. So let's study together. Let's do this together.
So thank you so much. That was super helpful. And one of the things I just want to say is we're going to put a synopsis of Womboy's crypto, the first step of Womboy's crypto journey, the video clip of exactly her instructions on the Bixie app. So if you download the Bixie app, there's some links circulating on IG and Facebook. Download the Bixie app today. We're going to put up all of the instructions step by step inside of our community section under Bixie events. And for those who actually go ahead and open a wallet in the next 48 hours, send us your wallet address and you will qualify for a Bitcoin drop. Of every so often, we drop some Bitcoins into the wallets of our communities. Why do we do this? Because we want you to start your learning journey. It's not going to be, millions of dollars, but it's going to get you started. You're gonna be like, oh, I have a tiny bit of Bitcoin somewhere. I'm going to actually start doing something with this. This is a learning process. Again, this is not, don't think of it as this is my, it's an investment. These are these things that I'm going to, no, it's just, I'm going to learn about basically, as Moses was saying, what the internet is going to look like in 5-10 years. So it's time to kickstart that journey. And we really hope that you kickstart that journey soon. So back to Moses. Now that I have the tool in my hand, I've got a wallet. What do I do?
Right. So
I've got a wallet. Bixie dropped me some coin. What do I do?
Just before I go and talk about do your own research, I just wanted to cover a little bit of crypto hygiene. So when you sign up for anything on crypto, it's best to have an email address that you only use for crypto.
That's really good advice.
And one of the things that I think, one of the services, free services that I think are very useful is like Proton Mail. And then you can have two-factor authentication on your email, as well as if your exchange has it, which they should. You should always turn on two-factor authentication. You shouldn't use SMS. You should try to use something like Google Authenticator. And that is very, very important. I think that over the many years, there's been a lot of people who have gotten their accounts compromised and have lost their crypto. It's very easy to lose your crypto because it travels on the internet. So be careful.
To take into account.
And so I'll really go quickly on do your own research. And this kind of works for people that I try to convince to get involved in crypto. So first of all, I think that it's easy to sign up for podcasts while you're on your commute. And so there's three recommended podcasts you should subscribe to. One is Markets Daily Crypto Roundup by CoinDesk. The other one is Unchained by Laura Shin. And then finally, Epicenter. So those are three podcasts that you can subscribe to, get you started, start listening about what all this crypto stuff is all about. And then when you're back home, you can look at some YouTube videos. And there's a very approachable YouTube channel for beginners called the Coin Bureau. And that's something that comes out a couple episodes a week. And then he has a weekly wrap up of crypto news as well every week. So that's very good. Ledger, which is a hardware wallet company, they also have a YouTube channel. And then specifically, they have a series called School of Block. And it's very entertaining. So it'll give you a really more in-depth coverage of crypto technology than what we can do in this time. And then there's another wallet called Exodus. And I have to mention that because I'm Moses. And Exodus also has a channel on YouTube that's very informative. So you listen to podcasts, you watch YouTube, then what do? So what you want to do is whatever is mentioned during the podcast or YouTube, what seems interesting, jot it down. And then what you want to do is, if it's a cryptocurrency, and I meant to mention this earlier on, but cryptocurrency is a wide variety of digital assets, right? So many times people would think that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency, but in actuality, there's something like 8,000 cryptocurrencies right now. And so Once you hear a cryptocurrency mentioned, then what you want to do is go to CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. And from there, you can look up the coin. And then from there, they'll also have the website, if available, for that asset. And what you should do is you should then go to the website and read it. Now, in many cases, the website will have a lot of information. It might be too technical. And so what you want to do is you also want to follow that project on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. So I'll go through a little example, for example. There's a project called Cello. And I heard about Cello listening to the Epicenter podcast, and that was episode 355. And then I looked it up on YouTube, and there was a channel called Paul Bear Network, where he interviewed the founders of Cello. Got interested in that because Cello is a mobile-first wallet going by phone numbers. That simplifies it a lot, I thought. And so I went to the Cello website, read some more about Cello, and then I followed them on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. I downloaded one of their apps on my phone, and then I tried it out. And so that's kind of like how you do your own research. You hear about it first. You don't go jump and invest in it. You hear about it first, and then you search on YouTube. You read on the project's homepage, and then you follow it on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord, and see if there's, continuing interest and utility. Does this thing add value to what you're doing, to what their problem that they're trying to solve? And then from that, you try out a little bit to see if the technology is working well. And then you can decide, well, maybe I should invest in this or not. So that's kind of like an example of how you can do your own research. All right.
That's perfect. That's very Warren Buffett, like bring it back down to what's tangible and what you can actually understand. Because ultimately, like any investment, it's about, is it a good one? And you're the best, and you can kind of ascertain that by making it tangible. So that's really practical. We have a couple of questions that came in. One from Facebook. Have you tried Binance? Is it a good platform? And which crypto tokens do you think are good investments? I'm already going to say the latter one. This is not an advisory, so I don't know how you can kind of not.
Sure. So none of what I say is an endorsement for any platform. I will say that Binance is one of the largest exchanges in the world for derivatives, for futures derivatives. So what I mean by that is it's not the actual digital asset, it is a leveraged form of that asset. And so Binance is one of the biggest markets for that. And so I don't use Binance now because it's not allowed in Singapore. So if you're in a jurisdiction that allows Binance, then it has been a platform that has been reliable throughout the years. They also have a insurance type fund that has reached $1 billion recently. So yeah, it's a reputable company, it seems, in terms of their operations. Now, there's also news about regulatory challenges that they have as well. But I think overall, within the whole crypto universe, regulation is coming. And then that's something that will be worked out, obviously, in the next couple of years.
Another question from Facebook. What is the reason for fluctuating Bitcoin prices? What do you think?
Right. So there's many opinions about this, but then I think the the thing that makes sense to me is it's early. If you think about it, Bitcoin started in 2008. So any early asset is going to have fluctuating value in terms of another asset, right? So I think we always look at Bitcoin volatility in terms of the US dollar. And so there's like other macroeconomic effects that happen in fluctuating the value of Bitcoin as well. So I think what makes sense to me is right now, the adoption rate is lower than other assets. Like, for example, Bitcoin market capitalization is, it fluctuates, but it's less than $1 trillion now. In terms of comparison, I think that Google market capitalization as of recently is $2 trillion. So all of Bitcoins in the world is worth less than Google, right? So that should put things into perspective for you as to how early it is. And something that's early will have fluctuating price in terms of like whatever you're basing it on.
Okay. Another question from Facebook. What is your take on NFTs, especially their environmental impact? Do you think they're a good investment? As an artist, it's really profitable to dive into since I don't need to have much money to mint and sell one on NFT markets. Thank you.
I guess it's going to be controversial, but I just don't know what use a NFT picture is. I didn't really see a value in it, but I had to try it out, so I bought an NFT, and it's my profile pic.
What? Sorry?
It's my profile pic, my NFT. So after buying a NFT, an image in NFT, I still don't know what it's all about. So I can't really answer that question. But I have bought game NFTs.
Okay.
And that made sense to me. Because your game NFT lets you interact within that metaverse. And then it allows you virtual engagement, which I think makes a lot of sense. So depending on the kind of NFT, I think it resonates with certain people. I'm sure that, you know, NFT pictures resonate with some people. It just doesn't with me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I think that's all the questions that we have. Moses, do you have any parting thoughts? Anything else you want to share with our community?
Yeah, I think that I would highly encourage you to take this as an education opportunity, find out what it's about. The best way to find out what it's about is actually doing it. So go ahead and do it. I would highly discourage you from approaching this as a get-rich-quick scheme. It's very dangerous because cryptocurrency involves trading. And if you are not an experienced trader, and you approach it like a get-rich-quick scheme, then it can be very challenging. So approach it as a learning experience, and then hopefully you'll do your own research. And then at that point, you can turn into an investor.
That's great. And you've given us a lot of like really concrete steps on, what do your own research actually can look like. And we've also talked about how to begin the journey. So we have concrete steps on how to open the wallet. We're going to put all of that inside of the Bixie app. So download, it's in the link on IG and Facebook. Download our app. We have it in Android, iOS. Go to community, go to Bixie events, and you'll find all of your information there. And that's also where we'll include information on when we do our Bitcoin drops for those of you who managed to successfully open a wallet today. So thank you so much, Moses. I think, I speak for everybody when I have learned a lot. I was furiously taking notes. I'll be listening to those podcasts. So thank you so much. We hope you'll join us again. Once we've kind of leveled up our knowledge, once we all have wallets and have a little bit of, a little bit of experience, it'd be great to kind of have a master's workshop for those of us who feel even more engaged to push ourselves further. So thank you so much. Womboy is going to close us out. It's really been a pleasure as always. I always enjoy these discussions that we have because I learn a ton and then I walk away and actually apply it in my own life. So I hope everybody who joined us today will do the same. Womboy?
Okay, yeah, just a minute. I'm just gonna wait. Okay, wait. There you go. So again, thank you so much, Moses. And thank you also to my sister. This is a very informative session. Actually, before we had this session, medyo na pressure ako kasi kailangan kong maintindihan ganyan. But apparently, mas marami talaga ako naintindihan during. So again, thank you so much for. Will we go offline? Hello.
Yep, I see you.
Okay. Okay. So again, I would like to remind everyone, yan, sa mga gusto pang sumali, so tag your friends. I'm gonna flash again the Bixie giveaway. Ayan. So here, so we have a Chinese New Year giveaway for Bixie. So all you have to do is, of course, download the app. Kasi dun kayo sasagot ng question. So it's when you download the app, you register, and then go to the community. Tapos nandun din yung questions. Tapos may mga naka-answer na doon. So just put in your answers. Or you can also go to IG. Yan. Nandun yung post namin on the Chinese New Year giveaway. The questions are also there. And then tag 3 friends or even more friends. So this is our Bixie Lady Starter Pack. Ito yung mapapanalunan ng winner. So we're encouraging everyone, especially the ladies, not just for this giveaway, but for knowing more about what Bixie could help all of us in our financial journey. And last but not the least, I will be flashing. We have a new event. On next week, Thursday, same time. It's called Insurance is Lit. Yeah, and so we will be having Cyrus Cruz. Yeah, he's the UBX Singapore country head and managing director for insurance and savings. So, ayan, isa sa mga usapin, isa sa mga topics that sometimes intimidates us is insurance. Parang natatakot tayo, ganyan. But we will make it fun and we will make it lit next Thursday. So I hope you could join us. Ayan, si Cyrus, batang-bata pa yan. So we can all relate with him. Especially sa age natin, we must, ako tingin ko personally, we must have at least one insurance, that could cover us for, yung accidents or yung mga emergencies, of course. So I hope to see you next Thursday. As we all learn, once again, kahit yung mga may insurance na, baka you wanna explore more. So again, insurance is lit. It's not something to be scared about, but we will learn more from Cyrus next Thursday. So again, thank you so much everyone for attending today's live, and I hope you learned as much as I did, and I hope kayo magbukas na din kayo ng first crypto wallet nyo, because we never know if we have like extra cash or extra income in the next few weeks that would put in there, kahit gaano kaliit yan, little by little, anything little when anything small when combined, in the end it will create like kumbaga medyo malaki din na income or like savings for all of us. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you guys. We hope to see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.